Some of the topics that we're going to be talking about during this podcast may be triggering and it might make some listeners feel uncomfortable. Your discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the next episode of Voice in the Void's Restorative Storytelling podcast series that we're focusing on around end violence against women and girls. And today's episode, we're delighted to have Deidre, who's going to be sharing a wee bit about her experience. And Deidre was a recent storyteller in a Golden Seams series where she was sharing her experience within the family court systems, particularly. For those that don't know Voice in the Void, we're a restorative storytelling social enterprise with a vision to create both personal and societal change through the power of restorative storytelling. It's about giving people the opportunity to find and share their stories how they wish in their own words and in their own voice and in their own way and how they want to share it. And yeah, providing that opportunity for people to reconnect with themselves, maybe people who have been harmed, to be repairing what has been harmed. And in today's episode, Deidre's going to talk a wee bit about her experience. And first of all, just welcome you, Deidre, to this episode, and thank you so much for coming and talking. Do you want to just tell us a wee bit about maybe like how it was or how you got involved with Golden Seams?
Well, if I start way back of how I got involved in any group, I was working as a professional person, and through my domestic violence, which dominoed into my mental health, I really needed extra support and joined a women's group where I met Rory Doherty. So I've kind of known you, Rory, for a decade now. And then whenever you started up Voice in the Void, you always felt that there was going to be a time for my story to be shared, but it wasn't always the right time. And what was really nurturing about all that was that it wasn't necessarily the right time for me, and you recognised that, whereas you never pushed, but it's the right time for yourself. You always thought of the person. And just being really steeped in family courts, the time that was right was whenever we recently did Golden Seams, and I appreciate you waiting until that was the right time for me. Getting involved in that meant expressing my story in a more artistic way through monologue and through dancing. But again, I must really focus on the fact that it was the right time to share my story at that time, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, totally. And that is so important, I think, in the process of storytelling, is making sure that the storyteller is the right time for them, because obviously there was so much else going on behind the scenes, and then you were joined in like a number of other groups. I know you're very much connected with PPR and the mental health campaign around the new script for mental health, and you've been finding your voice and lobbying in other ways and supporting other people, particularly around the mental health. But you were always sort of passionate about the criminal justice system and making sure that your voice, because you have been through it and you have...
Yeah, I think that was a part of my story that that other groups, not that I wasn't given a chance, that there was no kind of outlet for other groups. And yes, whilst that what happened to me did affect my mental health, with Golden Seams, it was the perfect opportunity for me to explore what I really, really wanted to get into the nitty gritty, which was why was I trailed through a decade of court. I mean, that should never have happened to anyone, and just the impact that has not just on me but my two children. Golden Seams provided me with the perfect platform to be really, really focused on that part of my story, which I am so passionate about, trying to help other people change legislations and just get those views across to the community and to those who were watching it.
Amazing. And in the previous episode, we had Donna, who was an audience member and got to hear your story, and she mentioned your name specifically and said it really resonated and touched her as well. So that, I mean, credit for being so open and honest and sharing your story on stage, because not only did you share your story, you did a dance as well, and you did in multiple ways of connecting with the audience, and that outlet that you artistically did yourself was incredible. So fair play. But for those that don't know about your story and about being trailed through the family court system, like you mentioned, it's up to you how much you want to share or not about.
Yeah, well, I'm not a bit behind the door about the fact that I went through domestic violence, and that affected my mental health. I came out of my professional job, then I ended up, on the benefit trap, and then that infiltrated into my mental health, and the children were affected as well. What I didn't realise at the time is whenever you split up with an abusive partner, that they can still be a perpetrator, because they can use and abuse the family court system, and they can personally use that as a platform to re-traumatise their victims and to further abuse their victims. And I think I was not aware that that was going to hit me like a bombshell. So I thought as soon as I ended the relationship, that was it. I was very, 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 very vulnerable and very immature thinking like that, because it's not it. And then I think this has been a real big eye-opener. And another thing that I didn't realise as well is that this man is also very intelligent, and I didn't realise that he would be speaking to me directly as a personal litigant. I didn't know the things like that happened in family court. That was extremely re-traumatising for me, even just to hear my ex-partner's voice in the courtroom, but also to have questions directed at me. Another thing that lent itself to, which was very traumatising for the whole family, which is what Golden Seams, my part of the story, is based on, my dance in particular. It starts off where the letterbox open, it's just before Christmas, and there's a big thud, and that thud is a real thud. And that thud was 50 A4 pages, because I counted them, of literature from my ex-partner, which was full of stuff that had already been litigated in court that I didn't realise could possibly come out to the surface again. There was new allegations. The fresh things and the old things were mixed together. The court system didn't filter that. They didn't see it. They just allowed him as a personal litigant to send me that. When it was sent, it was timed. It was the whole timing of it. He chose when it was being sent. He sent it at a time when all the solicitors' offices had closed for Christmas. I could do nothing about it. And my image and my children's vision of me before Christmas, trying to hold it together. Christmas is very traumatic for anybody, especially with the cost of living crisis. But on top of that, I am on my knees in my hall, crying, rocking like a baby, because I am now being trailed through court again. And my story was done as part of a little monologue at the start, just explaining, the letterbox opening, what was happening. And then there was a voiceover, and the voiceover, my intention with that was to have a man's voice, which I got. And the man's voice was my ex, and it was his words, his negative words, that used to really impact me, such as "you're too fat to dance." And that's another reason why I wanted to dance. I used to dance whenever I was much slimmer than this. But what should weight have to do with it? Exactly. If I love dancing and it was always my outlet, then why can't I do it again? And then through his words and his negative words, then my voiceover comes over, and it's his words that I'm using. So it's like his words are inside my head, and his words have become my words. But then it becomes really positive during the dance, and it's all positive words like, I am a mother, all things that I love about myself. I am intelligent. I am beautiful. I am smart. I can do this. I am worthy. So there's a real transformation, not just in the dance, but also the voiceover. And at the end, it's very empowering, and it's all about, I am a warrior princess.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
And that my scars are my scars, and they're my warrior wounds. And it was really just the use of words for me was really important. But also it had to be authentic, because those words that he was using and that's in that dance are the actual words that was in the 50-page document, are the actual words that I grew up with him, being in a relationship with him through the domestic violence. So I kept it as real as I possibly could, but used drama and used the dance to make it more relatable to the audience, and did it in a very different way. Because I believe that the arts is just a beautiful, and storytelling is just a beautiful way of getting a very traumatic event across to the audience, but not in like a really shocking way, just like, a way that they can understand and appreciate and relate to. And I always believe that the visual side of things, it's a universal language for everybody, really, isn't it?
Yeah, like storytelling.
Yeah,
as well,
storytelling, the art,
but
the
how
drama.
because you were in control of how it looked in the dance and the monologue at the start and how you finished it as well. So I think you did like an amazing job, and it was so beautifully put together. And you obviously touched on a really difficult and heavy subject. And I was shocked to learn, because I learned from you that this was a thing, and an ex could bring you to court on Christmas Day, and it happened not just the one year, but like I was learning from you as well in your experience. And the end of your piece, I don't know if you remember the words, but you know, like you stood up and you are going to be louder than him, and you are going to find your voice, and you will use your voice for the voiceless, and you will use your voice to create change. And you are doing that. And from that, we've had a meeting with another storyteller, Mitch, and we've been up to meet the Victims Commissioner, and I know that we're forming a lobbying group. But I want to ask you about that experience as well. So what change would you like to see within the criminal justice system and using your story in particular?
First of all, I'm very grateful for the platform the Voice in the Void has given me. And I mean, I love Golden Seams. I would love other people to see it, because all 5 of our stories were just so important and so different. I think going up to meet the Victims Commissioner was really great, because they're trying to change policies and they're trying to create change and campaign for change, which is really what I want. I mean, I always say, I've even wrote a poem about it, nothing is ever in vain. I can't have gone through all this experience and then there not to be any changes. Meeting Geraldine Hanna was wonderful, and she has invited me back since, which is amazing, because they do want to use real lived experience people in the process of trying to change legislation. And I think that's really important for me, because an awful lot of the time organisations are trying to make changes, but there's no real lived experience people on the panel. There needs to be us on the panel. I mean, one thing in particular that I'm really passionate about is giving children a voice. Why are children not allowed to have a voice in the family courts? It's about them. It's called family courts for a reason. We are a family. It was either what he said or what I said, but if they had actually listened to what the child wanted, they would have realised that an awful lot of it could have been solved without trailing somebody through court for 10 years. But I really genuinely from now on do want to campaign for change. I do not want anybody to go through what I went through. I have accepted, although it's been really hard, what I've went through. I am using things like writing poetry, dancing, my art, being involved in other groups like the mental health campaign, the new script, and I'm doing all that as part of my healing process. But I genuinely want to create change. I want the law to change.
Yeah, of course.
And that's ultimately how other people like Geraldine Hanna can help with that.
And that brings us back to the vision of the Voice in the Void. Is that personal for yourself and the personal healing and the process of storytelling, what that does to the storytelling individual, finding the voice, finding the confidence, the belief, but given the control of where they decide to take their story and that into that societal change. And you're actually meeting specifically with legislators and the Victims Commissioner and creating the change. So I mean, a real credit to yourself as being a champion. And I know you got a text message you just shared with me before this podcast.
Yeah, they actually want to use my real lived experience as evidence. And obviously you can't change policies without evidence. So if my story then creates evidence for change, then I'm definitely going to agree to meet with them. They sent me that email, and that was basically Voice in the Void planted the seed. You brought me up. They heard a little tiny bit of my story, but since I've met with them, and another thing as well, I think you've learnt this through me too, going through criminal and family court. The criminal courts don't tell the family courts what's going on. There is no transparency. And whenever I spoke to Geraldine Hanna last week, it was actually about parole and things like that. But I have a wealth of knowledge in both courts because I've went through both courts. I'm still going through one of them, and there's no transference of information. Now, had the criminal court spoken to the family court people, then my ex-partner would not have been allowed to reapply for contact whenever one court had said no to contact and then the other court was trying to get contact. So really, in hindsight, why was that allowed to happen? Why was I allowed to read 50 pages? Why was I given 50 pages to read before Christmas? Why did I have to go back to court whenever one court already said no? That needs to stop, because that cannot continue. And there also isn't enough information for people. I mean, you go to the courts, and I don't know if anybody's ever been. It's really scary. It's very clinical. Nothing is private. Everybody's talking around you. People are crying. People are on their own. People are with people. It's the weirdest situation in the world to be in. And you're not given a lot of information. You're not given a lot of support. I did not see any mental health like posters anywhere. You know, if you're feeling like this, if you're feeling like that, you're literally just left to your own devices. And I mean, it's like going into a police station. You're searching all before you go in. It's not a pleasant situation to be in. So if I could have avoided that at any cost, had the law been changed already, then I could have saved myself a lot of hassle and a lot of trauma. I mean, my daughter was going through her GCSEs at the time. I don't know how she did it, because her mummy was literally lying on the floor crying over, and people were like, don't read it. Don't read it. I have to read it because he is his own lawyer. I have to read it so that I can then try to get myself a lawyer. And on one occasion, nobody would take me on because the case was so complex that I ended up having to represent myself, and I should never have been put in that position. And another thing as well that I want to add, when you're in court, there's a hierarchy. So the judge is on a platform, then there's a medium platform, and that's where all the barristers go. And then I used to feel like a pleb because then I was on the low seats, and then I could see him in front of me because he was representing himself. He was allowed to be on the barrister's platform. I want people to really think about the visuals there, because that hierarchy and that status of he's up here and I'm down here, that will be imprinted and sketched in my brain for as long as I live. And this is another reason why I really genuinely want to create change. Storytelling is a perfect way of doing that, because it's a real experience, and it's a personal experience. And to transfer that over to other people. I mean, people were coming up to me after Golden Seams going, I know somebody who's going through that, or my such and such went through that. And even that girl Donna, she made herself known to me. She came over and gave me a big hug and said that really, really affected her. And that
spoke about it.
Really, really, she said, really resonated with her. And that's what I wanted. It's, you know, I don't want people to go, oh, I feel sorry for you. I want people to go, she means business. She's went there and she said, I'm giving a voice to the voiceless. I'm not staying quiet. I am going to speak up, and I am going to create change.
Yeah, and amazing. And I think that you're exactly changes what you're creating, what you're doing. So massive credit to you. Just going back to the very start of the conversation, whenever we talked about not feeling ready or the time wasn't right for you to share your story. So tell us, what's it like now having shared your story in Golden Seams and being empowered?
I feel so empowered. I mean, you can't even describe the feeling. It's like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. It was like I was burying myself in the house, you know, closing myself inside, not wanting people to know the trauma, the extent of the trauma that I was going through. And I think letting it all out was a great release for me. It was a great part of my healing process. But one of the most wonderful parts of Golden Seams was my daughter had been away on a school trip.
That's right.
And the day she got back, I couldn't collect her because I was in the Brian Friel Theatre in QFT, and I did not realise that she was going to come straight. She'd lost her bag and everything when she was away. She had to get a land of my goddaughter's clothes and all. It was mental, and she came because the story's about her. She witnessed what her mummy was going through. She was my rock, and although she's 17 now, she had grown up with that, even though that was her wee brother going through court and not her. She is an extension. She is our family, and she was very emotional. And I know that you know my daughter as well through another project that we did, but to see that growth in her, to see how proud she was that her mummy had the courage and the confidence to get up and do that. She's also a dancer herself. So the fact that I was dancing was like really empowering for her too, because she's like, Mummy, but you've always loved dancing and you stopped dancing whenever he called you fat. And it was just this lovely moment where she was in the front row and I was looking up at her, and I just got really emotional because she understood, and I was just so grateful that she could be a part of that process.
So beautiful. And I spoke to you after, and she was incredibly proud, and I hope you're incredibly proud
I really am.
of yourself and your journey, and for having like the courage to speak for the voiceless and to use your story and your voice to create societal change. So a massive thank you to Deidre, and the courage and the strength that people I think will get from your story will be inspiring, and hopefully encourages other people in similar situations to reach out and know that they can get hope or can get help and get to a place like yourself
Yeah.
with the strength and the resilience, because we all have that inner strength and resilience within us, just finding the right people and making them connections who can help bring that out. And you mentioned before, nothing in vain, and one of the creative ways that we help people find their voices through poetry, and you've shared a poem, and maybe this is a good way to close this episode of inviting you to say any final words you may have and then to share your poem with those listening.
I think, like, I would never have considered myself like a poet, but whenever I was trying to find ways to heal and to get me through my situation, and it is important to know as well that men are going through this too. I know some myself, but for me, I can only speak from my perspective, and poetry was a great way for me to release my feelings through words. But whenever I was looking back on trying to be positive about my really negative situation, and I did mention it earlier on in the podcast, was that nothing is ever in vain. There needs to be a reason why this all happened to me, and I want to use it in a productive way. So I did write my thoughts down on paper, and this is my poem, Nothing is Ever in Vain.
Okay.
My world was falling apart, and I would dart around the place to find some healing grace. I'd go here and there looking for help and get nowhere. I was desperate and in despair. I'd see black holes in life, and the deeper they got, the more I was in strife. There's no one to talk to. There's nowhere to go. The list and services are endless. It's all a bit of a mess. I'm in agony. I'm in pain. But my torture, my experiences, my trauma cannot be in vain. I try to get help. I try to reach out. It's closed doors what my life is all about. I want to talk about my problems, to express my fears so that I can be there to catch other people's tears. And I hope that things will turn around so people do not feel eternally bound to their past traumas and hurt and pain. I'm telling you now, nothing is ever in vain. There is a window. There is a way. I am worthy and I'm not made of clay. You cannot mould me into something that you want me to be, because I am unique and different, and that's just me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And that is exactly it. And that's a lovely way, I think, to end this podcast, is because we want people to get, hope and recovery from it. And that poem just articulates it so well. So nothing is ever in vain. And massive thank you, Deidre, for sharing your story and being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. Some of the issues that we spoke about today, particularly around being in abusive relationships, may have brought up some feelings that are uncomfortable or that are worrying. And if you or someone you know is in a relationship that you feel like is harmful, there are services across Northern Ireland that can support you. So Women's Aid have many different bases all across Northern Ireland, and I encourage you to give them a Google, look where your local Women's Aid base is and reach out to them. There's Start 360 and also Nexus Northern Ireland, which offers counselling and therapeutic services to people who have been in abusive or toxic relationships. Thank you.